These two astronauts have embarked on a mission to reach the edge of the known universe, but what happens once they get there is going to warp their view of reality completely. Alarms are going off inside a space shuttle laboratory, and amidst the chaos, two astronauts are fighting, with one of them claiming that the other has lost his mind, and they need to follow the protocol for what to do when that happens. The second astronaut threatens the first one with a pair of pliers. Outside, the space shuttle is seen moving at incredibly high speeds, propelled by a mysterious luminous power source. On another ship propelled exactly in the same way, the clock shows 6 a.m. and the pilot of the ship, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Richards, wakes up and goes through his morning routine, which involves doing some push-ups right out of bed and then hitting the exercise bike. His partner, Dr. Abe Anderson, is less enthusiastic with his morning routine. He reluctantly gets out of bed, makes himself some coffee, and adds some booze in it. Much more cash money than the other guy. Next, Harold goes to the lab and examines a bee farm, making some notes in his logbook. After this, he feeds an electric eel which lives in an aquarium on the space shuttle. Finally, he arrives in a room with a periscope in it and looks out into space to see nothing but darkness. While Harold is busy with all of these duties, Abe spends his entire day doing nothing at all. He drinks lots of booze out of some sachets, finds and tries on a pair of sunglasses, and watches old TV. Much more cash money than the other guy. After fulfilling his duties for the day, Harold arrives to sit next to a drunk Abe. He says that he can see nothing but darkness outside, which means they must be close to their destination. A pessimistic Abe replies that he is not accounting for the expansion of the universe, so there is no real way of knowing if they are close or far from their destination. He insinuates that this entire mission is pointless. Harold gets upset and leaves. The next morning, Harold continues his strict routine, and Abe continues to not care about anything like a cool person. While feeding the electric eel, Harold accidentally drops his pen in the aquarium. As he reaches for it, his dog tags touch the water, and the eel electrocutes him. The power in the ship fluctuates, waking Abe up. He rushes to the lab and finds Harold's dead body on the floor. He is devastated beyond measure. He suffers a psychological breakdown and spends the day watching TV with Harold's body, hoping Harold will wake up at some point. When he doesn't, Abe finally comes to terms with reality and puts Harold's body in a body bag. He throws the body in the airlock, but can't muster up the strength to pull the lever and send it out into space. Next, Abe goes to the control room and realizes that he has no idea how anything works. He enters 2 prompts into the computer, trying to measure his distance from Earth and from the edge of the known universe, but both distances are unquantifiable. Next, Abe wakes up next to the airlock, where he fell asleep to briefly abate his inevitable loneliness. As he is getting up, he accidentally pulls the lever, sending Harold's body into the dark void of space. He is truly all alone now. He passes out. Next, the space shuttle encounters some rough outer space phenomenon, which wakes Abe up. He looks out the window in the viewing room and sees a giant electric eel wrapping itself around the ship. Realizing he's probably hallucinating, he drinks some more booze and passes out again. Next, Abe watches an old video of him and Harold doing a TV interview sometime earlier during their voyage. The host asks them how they passed the time during such a long voyage. They reply that they were conducting a study on the effects of zero gravity on bees, but all the bees died, leaving the results inconclusive. They also had a pinball machine which broke. The host asks if they will ever succeed with their primary mission and reach the edge of the universe. Abe replies that they will, but the journey will take an incredibly long time. However, they will know when they are there, because they will stop seeing any stars around them. In the present, Abe makes a noose out of wires, says goodbye to a picture of his wife whom he loves very much, and tries to take his own life. But after the ship jolts a few times, the noose breaks apart before he can choke to death. Next, Abe arrives in the viewing room and sees a blinding bright light flashing outside. The ship appears to have arrived at some kind of barrier. He puts on his glasses to try and make out what's happening. Flashback to 13 years earlier, a woman named Dr. Weatherford is speaking to a room full of scientists, explaining the mathematical theory behind the upcoming manned mission to the edge of the universe. She introduces a younger Dr. Abe as an outstanding marine biologist and one of the volunteers for the mission. Joining him will be Lieutenant Harold, who will provide the brawn of the mission to complement Abe's brains upon the military's request. He will be piloting the space shuttle. Dr. Weatherford is excited that this mission will shed light on the truth regarding some of the biggest theoretical works of all time. A scientist in the audience objects to the mission, calling it a huge and unnecessary risk. He says that they need to work on the theory a lot more before approving such a mission. Dr. Weatherford says that the risk is fully justified. Harold and Abe shake hands, and photographers take pictures of this epic moment. Next, Abe is prepared for the journey ahead of him. During preparation, military personnel explain his rights to him as a participant of this mission, of which there aren't many. Dr. Weatherford discusses the theoretical assumptions that she is hoping to confirm with this mission. She is fascinated by the idea of a multiverse. As she looks at the board full of mathematical calculations, she exclaims that the universe is far more complex than they've ever known. But the fictional possibilities shouldn't be discarded, especially since what they are hoping to uncover with this mission is beyond all of their collective imaginations. Trying to digest all of this at once, Abe is overwhelmed and he faints. Harold arrives and helps him, giving Dr. Weatherford a reason to be optimistic about this mission, but then Abe faints again. Fast forward to a time during the mission when Harold is still alive. He notices that the automatic mechanism of the airlock disposal system has malfunctioned, and now they'll have to dispose of waste manually using the lever. Abe comments on the fact that this will become a tedious task. At this point during the trip, both astronauts are equally sharing the tasks aboard the ship. Abe is conducting research with the bees. He notices that Harold is breaking protocol and feeding sardines to the eel himself. He warns him that it is dangerous, but Harold says the activity brings him joy and continues doing it. At night, Abe draws something in his notebook and then goes to look at a galaxy through the periscope. The next day, Abe takes out the suitcase full of sardines, puts it in the airlock, and sends it out into space, so that Harold would no longer put himself in danger trying to feed the eel. After this, Abe arrives in the control room and watches as Harold follows the written protocol, pushing a bunch of different buttons to pilot the ship. He asks why Harold is doing all this when the ship is clearly flying automated. Harold insists that he is piloting the ship. Just then, a red emergency button starts blinking, and Harold tries to press it, as is protocol. But Abe stops him. He wants to see what will happen if they don't press it. Harold tells him to stop messing around, but Abe doesn't listen, prompting Harold to punch him. Abe only laughs, because the light has turned off, and nothing has happened. Harold starts questioning the utility of all that he does here. He types a prompt into the computer asking if he needs to be pressing any of these buttons, and gets no answer. The next day, Harold discovers that Abe sent the sardines into space, and he is outraged. Abe points out that Harold has already punched him once, so to hurt Abe, Harold rips the picture of his wife. At night, as Harold looks at the ripped picture, he hears noises in the other room. He arrives there to find the other two astronauts from the beginning, getting ready to depart on their own mission to the edge of the universe. As a toast, they drink alcohol out of little sachets, and Abe joins them. This is how his drinking problem starts. Flashback to a slightly earlier time in the voyage, Abe is working with the bees and discovering that they are dying of unknown causes. He goes into the periscope room and is treated to a star-lit view of the cosmos. Next, the two men wake up and continue their routines as usual. Harold notices that the automatic feeding system for the eel has broken. He finds Abe lying on the sofa, regretting that he hasn't done anything useful today. Harold says everyone deserves a day off. The next day, Abe tries to fix the pinball machine, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Harold begins his habit of feeding the eel. Later, Abe gives up on the pinball machine and just makes a necklace from its wires. Little does he know, he'll make another one years later. He finds a picture of his wife and breathes a sigh of relief because he thought he had lost it. Flashback to an even earlier time in the voyage, the two astronauts wake up in good spirits and ask each other their plans for the day. Abe says he will be working with the bees because they are ready for harvest. Harold exclaims that he loves space honey. After working with the bees, Abe goes to look through the periscope and sees a nebulae. This is a time so early in their journey that they can still see their sun. Next, Abe and Harold arrive in the control room, and Abe asks if Harold actually knows what every button in here does. Harold gives a confident answer, comparing it to driving a jet ski, except in space. Outside, something strange happens to the power source propelling the ship. It looks as if it has absorbed something. Next, Abe and Harold are continuing their daily routines, when strange flashes occur outside the ship. Abe finds Harold in the viewing room, where he doesn't come often. Harold asks what Abe loves about this room. Abe says that he likes to look at the stars and planets, which he finds beautiful. Harold sadly says that his wife is more beautiful. Abe asks Harold what made him sign up for this mission. Harold initially replies that he did it for his country, but then admits that the mission came with significant tax breaks for his family, which he could not refuse. Abe says that he came because science demanded it. The men wonder what they will find. They may well end up in another reality altogether, which has been theorized. Afterward, the two eat the space honey and continue discussing their families. Harold sees Abe's wife's picture and wonders how he could have left her behind. Abe admits that his wife left him, and hence, he came on this mission to get as far away from her as he could. So much for science demanded it. Next, Abe plays the pinball machine a bit too much and ends up breaking it. Just then, alarms go off on the ship, alerting the two men about the bees that are mysteriously falling dead. At night, Abe thinks about his wife, and as he turns over to sleep, the two astronauts from the other mission are seen sitting on the table conversing just like Abe and Harold. The next day, Harold finds Abe's notebook and sees drawings of himself in there. He asks what this is about, and Abe says that they are drawings of his body still being alive, which is good news. Harold starts freaking out, thinking that Abe has lost his mind and wants to hurt him. He threatens his partner with a pair of pliers and demands to know why he keeps drawing Harold's body. Abe says that he keeps remembering different things and drawing them. It started with the bees. He made drawings of hundreds of bees, and soon enough they started dropping dead in similar positions to the drawings. Harold sees a drawing of himself being electrocuted by the eel, and it is revealed that this same event has taken place in many different ways in several different universes. And somehow, Abe has seen them all. Abe says that he doesn't entirely understand what is happening either, but he knows that it's not just happening to them. Sure enough, it is revealed that the other two astronauts are from an alternate universe, and they are having the same conversation as Abe and Harold. Harold cannot come to terms with the fact that the eel is going to be the cause of his death. He cannot believe that Abe knows this in advance. Abe has also drawn an event where cracks of light are appearing in a dark place, but he doesn't know when, where, or how it will take place. To try and understand how the eel can kill him, Harold dips his hand in the eel's tank and ends up getting electrocuted to death. That's how. While putting his body in a bag, Abe sees the cracks of light drawing again and rushes to the viewing room. He sees nothing but darkness outside. He quickly rushes to a room full of wires but remembers that the pliers are with Harold. He finds them sunk in Harold's chest somehow. This is officially becoming too much to keep up with. Next, Abe tugs on the wires and somehow manages to steer the ship off course. The ship crashes into a black wall of some sort and cracks of light appear. The cracks become bigger and bigger until a blinding flash of white light is seen. Next, Abe is seen inside a house, where he turns off an old TV show saying he's already seen it. He goes out and meets his wife, who hasn't left him in this universe. He comes back inside and gets a call from Dr. Weatherford explaining that the position he volunteered for has been filled by someone else. Confused, he picks up the newspaper and sees a picture of the two astronauts making the journey in this universe. In the ship, the other two astronauts are desperately trying to fix a major malfunction, but one of them cuts the wrong wire, and just then, the ship is suddenly swallowed up by the darkness, with no trace left behind. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.